surface area of cylinders, that's what we're going to cover today. Okay? Yesterday we didn't really have a nice formula, we just kind of used common sense. Cylinders is easier because a cylinder always is the same shape. Gets a little taller, shorter, wider, skinnier, but it's still the same. So, we do have a formula for this, okay? Now, I'm going to rewrite this formula a little bit, okay? I don't mind the formula if that's there, but we're going to rewrite it a little bit because I want you to understand where it comes from. So, our formula, and on the bottom here, I want you to write a formula. Okay, I want you to think of a cylinder. What shapes make up a cylinder? What shapes make up this thing? Really?
Two circles and one long rectangle.
Would you agree with that? So it's two circles, right? We have a circle, the bottom circle, and then this piece, if we unroll it, is really just one long rectangle. Everybody agree? Okay. Do we know how to find the area of all those things? Okay. So our formula really becomes this. We have two circles plus a rectangle. Okay, let's start with the two circles. How do we find the area of a circle? Just one circle would be what? Yeah?
Area equals pi times radius squared.
Perfect. Okay, so that's just one, pi times radius squared. Because we have two, we're going to do 2 times pi times radius squared. That's the circle. Okay, so the circles are 2 times pi times radius squared. Plus the rectangle. Okay, now typically in a rectangle, we just do base times height. Agreed? I want you to think about this base. On the cylinder, okay, if I made this a circle again, what does this base represent? Circle, but what on the circle? What on the circle does that represent? The circumference, right? It's the distance around the circle times the height. So how do we find the distance around a circle? How do we find circumference? What's the formula for circumference? Krista? Pi times diameter. So this bottom part is really pi times diameter times the height to get the rectangle. So the formula for the rectangle part is pi times d times h. Okay. So this is the formula that we are going to use. Every cylinder is going to work the same exact way. We're going to just plug into that same formula. Are we okay with that? Okay. So, let's try this. Here we have a cylinder. Okay, it says find the surface area to the nearest 10. We're only going to round at the very end. Okay? So I'm going to start by writing down the formula. It was 2 times pi times radius squared. Write that part down. Plus pi times diameter times height. Okay, 2 times pi times radius squared plus pi times diameter times height. So we plug in what we know. 2 times pi is 3.14. What's the radius of that circle? 4. So we're just going to put 4 squared. I'm going to stop there and figure that out first. Okay, so use your calculator. You can type that all in at once. 2 times 3.14 times 4 squared, or 4 times 4. Make sure on your calculator you got 100.48. Is that what you got? Everybody got 100.48? Okay. Then we have to do the second piece. Okay, we have to do pi 3.14. What's the diameter of the circle? Really? 8. What's the height of the cylinder? 6. So we type that in. 3.14 times 8 times 6. And I got 150.72. The last thing is to add those two numbers together. So 150.72 plus 100.48. 251.2 inches squared. Questions there? I kind of like this one better than yesterday
Yeah.
because it's always the same, right? It's always the two circles and the rectangle. It's not like, oh, I have 2 triangles this time and 3 rectangles, and I don't have to worry about all that. It's the same formula every time. Okay? So, I want you to try the next one. So, same thing. Use the formula first. So, it's 2 times pi times radius squared plus pi times diameter times height. So, write that down and then fill everything in. And don't worry, you don't have to memorize the formula. Is that what you got? Yeah? We're okay with that? Somebody tell me, how come I use 30 right here? Why did I have to put 30 there?
Because that was just the radius, or 50 is the radius, so it times the radius.
Right. So when we need diameter, don't forget you have to double it because the diameter goes all the way across. Okay? Flip the page. Okay, this one looks a little bit different only because it's flipped on its side. Does that matter? No. Okay, we've talked about this already. That just means it's laying on its side. You just have to think about it flipped straight up. Okay? So same process. We're going to start with the formula. 2 times pi times radius squared plus pi times diameter times height. Okay, 2 times 3.14. What's the radius of this circle? 0.5. 0.5 squared. I got 1.57. Do you agree? Okay, so that was the two circles. Now the rectangle. 3.14. The diameter is 1. What's the height? 3. If you multiply that, I think you get 9.42. Add them together. Okay, if we're going to round to the nearest 10, and you get 10.99, rounding to the nearest tenth would be what? 11, right? This is, nearest tenth would be right here. This 9 makes this a 10, which is this to 11. So that is our answer. Okay, last problem is a word problem. And you're going to see problems like this on your homework. Okay. A can of vegetables has a diameter of 9.8 centimeters and is 13.2 centimeters tall. How much paper is required to make the label, assuming there's no overlap? Okay? So think about this. The label on a can. Does the label on a can cover everywhere? No, when you buy a can of vegetables, is there a label on the top? Sometimes there's a sticker on the top, but there's usually not a label on the top or the bottom, right? The label only covers the rectangle. So are we finding the area of all the surfaces? No. Okay. Typically we have the 2 circles plus the rectangle. Which piece are we finding this time? If I only want the label. Just the rectangle. So I'm going to cross off the circles. I don't need the circles. I just want the label, so I'm just doing the rectangle. Okay. So pi times diameter times height. That's all we need to do on this problem, and we have our answer. So 3.14. The diameter is 9.8. The height is 13.2. So 3.14 times 9.8 times 13.2, rounding to the nearest 10. Tyler, what'd you get? 406.2 centimeters squared. Questions there? No questions? Okay.